We're getting reports from around the globe, and it seems that the oceans, they've just vanished.
What if you woke up one morning and every ocean was gone? No waves, no tides, just silence. Where there used to be water stretching to the horizon, there's nothing now but an endless desert of cracked mud and salt. Cargo ships lie stranded in the dust like fossils of a forgotten age. Whales, their massive bodies dried by the sun, rest where the sea once breathed. At first, you'd think it was a dream and illusion caused by drought. But then you'd look farther. The coasts have vanished, and the air feels sharp and dry, almost painful to breathe. There's no moisture, no clouds, no sound. The planet's heartbeat. The ocean has stopped. 97% of all water on Earth is gone. Rivers collapse into trenches. Rain never falls again. Without the oceans, there are no tides to move heat, no clouds to carry life, no storms to cool the world. The blue planet is no longer blue. From space, Earth looks pale and hollow, like a dying eye staring into the void. And as the first winds of dust begin to rise, one thing becomes clear: the seas didn't just disappear. They took life with them. It happens without warning. One moment, waves crash against the shore, gulls scream over the surf, and salt fills the air. Next, the horizon is empty. The sea is gone, not calm, not receding. Just gone. The world holds its breath. In the first hour, silence becomes unbearable. Beaches stretch for miles into what used to be ocean. Fishing boats and cargo ships lie stranded in the dust like enormous skeletons, tilted on their sides, their hulls cracking in the sudden dry heat. Coral reefs crumble in seconds, bleaching to white, then to ash. The smell of salt is still there, faint but fading, like the ghost of something that kept us alive. People rush to the coastlines in disbelief. Where water once moved endlessly, there's only emptiness, a vast plain of cracked earth, stretching farther than the eye can see. The ocean floor, once hidden beneath kilometers of pressure and darkness, now lies exposed to sunlight for the first time in 4 billion years. Whales, fish, and sharks are left stranded on the sand, their bodies writhing for air that will never come. Within minutes, they die the largest mass suffocation in the history of life. By midday, the heat arrives, without oceans to absorb sunlight. The planet begins to cook itself. The oceans used to regulate Earth's temperature, absorbing energy by day, releasing it by night. Now, there's nothing to stop the sun. The ground heats like metal under a blowtorch. Temperatures climb past 120 degrees along the equator. Asphalt softens. Car tires burst. Even shadows feel warm. Moisture disappears from the air. The humidity that once wrapped every breath dissolves completely. Breathing feels like inhaling dust. Skin cracks. Lips bleed. Trees shrivel within hours, their roots still damp from groundwater that's now evaporating into nothing. Rain will never fall again, because the ocean, the world's only source of clouds, has vanished. By afternoon, the atmosphere begins to break. Without ocean currents to move heat, the air above land expands and twists chaotically. Winds reverse direction, then stop. The sky loses its blue, turning pale and colorless. Methane, once trapped beneath the seafloor, escapes in great bursts, igniting in flashes of orange fire across the dried seabeds. Lightning dances along the crust of the planet like veins of flame. The earth smells of sulfur and metal, the scent of a dying world. Animals sense what humans cannot. Birds spiral in confusion, their navigation systems destroyed by the loss of magnetic moisture in the air. They fall from the sky by the thousands. The great whales that once sang across oceans now lie in silent rows across the dust plains, giants defeated not by predators, but by the absence of what gave them life. By nightfall, panic replaces wonder. The oceans once carried trade, food, communication, the rhythm of civilization itself. With them gone, coastal economies collapse instantly. Power plants along the coasts fall silent. Nuclear reactors, designed to be cooled by seawater, begin to overheat. People flee inland, desperate for water that doesn't exist. Governments broadcast emergency messages that never reach anyone. The airwaves are choked with static. The world's largest desalination plants, useless, now stand as hollow monuments to human arrogance. By midnight, the planet no longer resembles the one we knew. The sky, once alive with clouds and starlight, is dull and gray. The moon shines weakly over a surface that reflects nothing. Where the Pacific Ocean once lay, a basin the size of half the world stretches dry and endless. Its floor, the Mariana Trench, gapes open like a wound. So deep you could drop Mount Everest into it and still have room to fall. As the temperature drops, frost forms over the dead bodies of sea creatures. The air is still, heavy, and dry as bone. The last traces of humidity freeze into microscopic crystals that drift through the air like ghost snow. Somewhere on what used to be the shore, a child scoops a handful of sand and presses it to her lips, searching for the taste of salt. There is none. The oceans didn't just disappear, they took memory, sound, and balance with them. The tides that shaped every coastline, that dictated every rhythm of life, are gone. The first 24 hours without the ocean are not filled with explosions or chaos, just silence. A silence so complete, it feels like the planet itself has stopped breathing. It doesn't take long for the silence to spread. After a single day without the oceans, the planet begins to suffocate. 3 days in, the coastlines, those old borders between life and death, have turned into deserts. The sand, once cool and damp, now burns at the touch. Temperatures near the equator climb beyond anything humans have ever felt. Over 140 degrees in the day. By night, the heat vanishes. Without water to hold it, warmth escapes into the vacuum of space. The world becomes a pendulum, scorching by day, freezing by night. Rivers shrink into silver lines of steam. Lakes vanish into pits of salt. What's left of the clouds dissolve completely, revealing a sun that glares like an open wound. There's no rain. There never will be again. Vegetation dies first. Grass withers into gray dust. Forests collapse in silence, trees cracking as their sap boils in the heat. The Amazon becomes a graveyard of trunks. The Siberian taiga catches fire and doesn't stop burning, the flames crawling endlessly across continents with nothing to slow them down. The last sound of life on Earth isn't thunder. It's the sound of roots snapping under their own thirst. By the 5th day, the oxygen begins to thin. Few ever realize that most of the air we breathe doesn't come from forests, but from the sea. Tiny organisms, phytoplankton, once bloomed across the oceans, turning sunlight into oxygen, with them gone. Every breath takes a little more from a dwindling supply. Oxygen levels drop by 10%, then 20%. Breathing becomes effort. Lungs tighten. Animals collapse mid-run, gasping. Birds vanish. Insects, those tiny survivors of every extinction, die next. They dry out faster than they can crawl to shade. Their absence breaks what's left of the food web. By the end of the first week, extinction is everywhere. The soil loses its moisture. Microorganisms that once recycled decay simply stop working. Dead things stay dead. The smell of rot fills the air, thick and chemical, like rust and ash. Humans try to adapt. Cities retreat underground. Those near mountain glaciers begin to melt the last reservoirs of frozen water, boiling it, drinking it in panic. But glaciers, too, are temporary. They were born from oceans, and without them, they die fast, within days. The world's last rivers turn to trickles of mud. Global power grids begin to fail. Many power plants were cooled by seawater without it. Their cores overheat. Nuclear plants shut down or melt down. The sky fills with faint, glowing clouds of radiation. Communication breaks apart. Satellites still orbit above, but the ground no longer listens. Crops fail. The great breadbaskets. India, China. The Midwest become wastelands. Seeds don't germinate in sterile soil. Farmers leave their fields and walk into the cities, searching for something that doesn't exist anymore: rain. Animals follow them. Starving herds of deer and cattle wander empty highways. Dogs form packs again. Cats go feral. Humanity's oldest companions become predators once more. The hierarchy of life resets to its original state, desperate and blind. At night, The stars burn sharper than ever. There's no humidity to blur them, no mist to soften their light. The Milky Way cuts across the sky like a scar. But it's a sky no one looks at anymore. Most are hiding underground, shielding themselves from the heat, from the cold, from the sight of what they've done. Within 2 weeks, the blue planet has turned brown. From space, Earth looks sick, its oceans replaced by cracked continents and exposed ridges. Its atmosphere thin and pale. The last surviving patches of life cling to the poles, where ice lingers in shadow. There, in caves and crevices, mosses and fungi continue to breathe, feeding on the moisture trapped in stone. For the rest of the world, it's over. The chain that began in the ocean has ended with it. The animals that depended on it, the plants that thrived beside it, the humans that ruled because of it all, undone by the absence of something as simple as water. Life on Earth doesn't end with an explosion. It ends with a whisper, dry, fragile, and final. Years pass. The panic fades, not because things are better, but because there's no one left to panic. The world has gone quiet again. The oceans, once the heart of the planet's rhythm, have been gone long enough that Earth itself has started to change shape, without the weight of trillions of tons of water pressing down on its crust. The land begins to rise slowly, unevenly. Mountain ranges stretch higher. Faults crack open. Dormant volcanoes awaken. The ground exhales smoke and ash where once waves rolled overhead. The climate has lost all sense of balance. The equator bakes at over 160 degrees. The poles swing between burning summers and frozen winters. Dust storms the size of continents circle the globe, carrying what remains of topsoil into the sky. Rain hasn't fallen in years. The word itself becomes a myth, remembered only in the few languages still spoken. The air is thinner now. Oxygen levels have dropped by a third. Fires burn slower. Breathing hurts more. Even in the underground shelters where a few thousand humans still survive, the air is stale, recycled through filters they can no longer replace. The walls are lined with condensation collectors, machines that harvest the breath of those inside, turning exhalation into drinking water. Survival has become a closed-loop breathe. Sweat. Drink. Repeat. Above ground, nature tries to adapt. A few extremophiles cling to life lichen. Fungi, bacteria that feed on rock and sunlight. Their colors are strange deep crimson, sulfur yellow, electric green. The planet that once bloomed with blue and green now wears the colors of poison. The oceans once carried nutrients across the world, creating cycles of carbon and nitrogen that fed every living thing. Without them, the system has collapsed. Carbon builds up in the atmosphere, trapping even more heat. The sky has turned copper red, heavy with dust and CO2. In what used to be the Pacific Basin, the exposed seafloor cracks like a dried tongue. Sulfur vents belch yellow gas into the air. The old Mariana Trench is now a chasm of black rock, stretching deeper than any canyon. If you stood there, you'd be standing where sunlight has never touched and where no life will ever return. Cities are gone, swallowed not by water, but by time. Their steel frames crumble in the heat. Glass melts and fuses into the sand. Satellites still orbit above, transmitting signals to a world that no longer answers. The digital heartbeat of humanity has become static. By the 10th year, the sky no longer glows blue but amber thin, harsh, unfiltered. The moon's reflection is sharper, crueler, hanging above a planet that can't reflect light back. Earth's oceans once made it shine like a jewel. Now, from space, it looks like Mars' older, sadder twin. The few humans left begin to forget what the ocean even was. The younger ones born underground know it only from stories. To them, the sea is just a word for something impossible, a place where the world moved, where sound and life and color coexisted, and somewhere, deep beneath the crust, small reservoirs of water still remain trapped in minerals, locked for eons. They were there before the oceans existed, and they will remain long after they're gone. The planet isn't dead, it's only asleep, waiting. Because on Earth, water is more than liquid, it's memory, and without it, even the memory of life fades. By the time the first generation born after the oceans comes of age, humanity has forgotten what blue looks like. They live in caverns carved deep into the crust, the last habitable pockets beneath a dead world. The walls are slick with condensation harvested from their own breath, every drop caught and purified for drinking. These underground cities, once built as bunkers, have become tombs of routine. People wake, work, eat, and sleep to the rhythm of generators and pumps that hum like mechanical hearts. Above ground, there is nothing left to return to. The sun has grown harsher, the atmosphere thinner. The surface temperature at the equator is high enough to melt plastic, and the nights dip below freezing. The sky is colorless, the stars look close enough to touch, but the air between them and Earth is dead. The last satellites blink out one by one. No more signals, no more transmissions. The old recordings, videos of waves, rain, and thunder become relics played on ancient screens in the shelters. Children watch them like fairy tales. They hear the sound of crashing surf and laugh, thinking it's some kind of wind. Resources run thin, with no oceans to moderate climate. Even the underground grows unstable. Earthquakes rattle the shelters as the crust continues to shift. Volcanoes erupt above, venting heat into a sky too dry for clouds. Ash falls like snow. The surface has become a place of ghosts where bones turn to dust in the open air. And silence echoes louder than any storm ever did. In one surviving colony, scientists attempt to recreate water. They mix hydrogen mined from minerals with oxygen extracted from carbon dioxide. The process works, but it's too slow. A few ounces a day, for thousands of mouths. They ration it by lottery. The unlucky ones simply stop waking up. The human body begins to change. After decades of living in air so thin and dry, skin thickens, eyes adapt to the dark, lungs become more efficient. The new generation breathes less, sweats less. Their veins carry less water, their blood darker. Evolution has started again, not in oceans, but in tunnels, in time. The concept of the surface fades into myth. The young are told that once, long ago, the world was covered in moving water, an endless mirror under the sky. They listen with disbelief. How could that be, they ask? How could so much water exist and the elders have no answer? Only tears, the rarest thing left that still feels like the past. Centuries pass. The remaining machines die. The air grows still. The caverns grow quiet. The last humans, too weak to maintain their fragile systems, begin to vanish, not with a scream, but with a sigh. Eventually, the earth falls silent once more. But silence is never empty. Deep beneath the crust, pressure and heat continue their slow dance. Steam forms in hidden chambers, condenses, and trickles along veins of rock. Drop by drop, water returns. It fills small cracks, gathers in pools, and seeps upward. It will take millions of years, but the cycle will begin again. The air will thicken, clouds will form, rain will fall for the first time in ages, hissing as it touches a surface that has forgotten what it means to be wet. Life will rise again. Maybe not human, maybe not even recognizable, but it will remember, in its own way, the shape of what came before. Because on Earth, nothing ever truly ends, it just changes form. And somewhere, in the layers of stone, fossilized deep within the crust, there will still be evidence of us, the ones who lived when the world was blue, the ones who thought the ocean would last forever. From space, Earth no longer shines. The deep blues and swirling whites are gone, replaced by dull browns and the faded gray of dust. To an alien eye, it might look like any other barren planet, another world that tried and failed to hold on to life. But Earth isn't dead, not really. Beneath its cracked skin, heat still moves, pressure still builds, and water, the ancient memory of life, still hides in stone, waiting for the chance to begin again. If this planet could speak, it might not mourn the loss of humanity. It might only whisper a reminder that water was never just part of Earth. It was Earth, its breath, its voice, its pulse. And without it, the planet doesn't end with fire or ice, it ends in silence. So the next time you stand by the sea and listen to the sound of waves, remember this, that every ripple, every drop, every tide is proof the world is still alive, and still merciful enough to let us be part of it.